Hi, everybody. So thanks for coming and tuning into our webinar. So this is a little weird for me. I'm Catherine McLaughlin. I'm normally the person who's sitting behind the scenes. I've never done an actual webinar presentation in front of you. So bear with me, it's going to be a little strange, but I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this topic. We're going to be talking to you about, is graduate school right for you? So like I said, my name is Catherine McLaughlin. I am a career services graduate intern. And basically my primary role is I get to come in and meet with you guys and have you come in and do mock interviews, resume critiques. I also host these webinars for you. And I'm also in charge of our externship program. So whenever you want to come into career services, you'll either be meeting with myself or my co-presenter here, Aubrey.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Hyatt. I am also a graduate intern here at Career Services. I basically do the same thing as Catherine, so I meet with you guys and do drop-in appointments, and sometimes you'll see me up at the front desk. Whereas Catherine does webinars and externships, I do the SET program and the Endorse program.
What's really cool about us getting to do this presentation for you guys is that we are actually currently in the graduate program. Both of us are in the same program, just a year difference between us. We're both in the mental health counseling, so we are getting a master's of education. So we have firsthand experience, so we're kind of excited to get to talk with you about this. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Let's see. All right, so first of all, let's just go through a little bit about what you're actually going to be hearing from us, right? So the first thing is obviously, how do I even know if graduate school is right for me, right? How do you make that decision? How do you come to terms with that? We're also going to go over some different degree types and areas of specialization. So what degrees you can even get and what those kind of look like for you. We're going to talk about how to identify what programs that you would want to participate in. So if maybe you come up with what degree you want, but now it's like, where do I go? What campus? What kind of program am I looking into? So this is going to be more of that, how to kind of pick and choose, right? And then from there, we're going to go into more that decision criteria. So now you've seen all the universities, you've read about them, you've gotten the information. Now, how do I pick? Like, that's a big decision. We're going to go into the application requirements. So this is going to be more like, what do I send in? How do I submit it? Who do I ask? All of that good information. We're also going to talk about next steps, which are really important. That's like that interview process, right? That's kind of that make or break. Once you've gotten in there, get to do the interview, we're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to do that. And then our last thing is just going to be some hints and advice that we have for you guys. And then we're going to open it up to some questions. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in, but we will get to those at the very end. All right, so how do I know if graduate school is right for me, right? This is like the tricky question. So you're in undergrad, maybe you're working right now, maybe, we open these up to not just students, but alumni as well. And potentially you're like, do I want to even go back to my grad school program? So really you want to just examine, what are your goals? What position do you want to have? This is going to take a lot of exploring. So this is more of I have my undergrad, I know that I could work with this, but maybe I want to do more. Maybe I want to work in academia. Maybe I want to be a professor or a counselor or a doctor, something that requires a license. If that's something that you're interested in, then you really need to be seeking some information on graduate school programs. You can't get those things with just a bachelor's degree. That's something that requires some additional education, so it's something you'll want to look into. Even from there, some of us we chose to go right into our grad school programs, but sometimes it's more you get out in the field and you work for a couple of years and you decide you want to make a career change. So sometimes it can be a good idea to look back and say, is it time for me to go back to school and further my education? So those are some good reasons to really examine whether or not grad school is actually right for you.
So kind of the degree types or the area of specialization. So if you go for a Master's of Arts, you'll probably be going into the English or communications field. The Master of Science, that would be more the biology, the engineering, mathematics, nursing kind of path. So kind of different from the Master of Arts and Master of Science, which is kind of similar to the bachelor programs as well. The MBA, that's specific for the business. Even for business students in undergrad, they either have a arts or science for the bachelor, just depending on the university. But for master's degree, it'll be towards the MBA for actual specific. For Masters of Education, which is what Catherine and I are, which she already talked about. So that'd be educational leadership, counseling, special education, those kind of areas as well. And then we do have those additional options. So for the JD, you'll go to get your Juris Doctor, or the MD for medical doctor, which we all know when we go to see the doctor, they always have an MD or something along those lines.
Okay, so now we've given you a little bit of information on like these are some of those programs you could do, right? So there's a lot of options open to you. So now which one do you pick? That can be a big struggle, especially if you maybe have an idea of, I do think I want to be a counselor, but maybe I want to go school track, or maybe I don't want to be in the schools, or maybe I have a passion for special education. This is where it's going to take a lot of exploring yourself and exploring whether or not which program is right for you. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to go and get some information on these programs, right? Okay. Like this is not something you go into blank and just say, yeah, I'm going to pay to apply for these schools, and if I get in, great, and if not, well, oh well. No, that's not the kind of decision you make lightly. This is something you're going to want to gain some information. So some ways we have are definitely like write some letters or some emails to some different graduate admissions offices. We have a really excellent admissions office here on campus, and the graduate studies office is absolutely open to talking with you guys about the programs and what they have to offer. So checking those out, and other universities as well. One thing I always like to say is people like to talk about their programs. They like to give you information. They want to talk with you and tell you about what they have to offer you. And honestly, they want you to come to their school. So never feel bad asking questions. You can call them directly. Maybe you're not the send an email and kind of wait person. I'm not like that. I want to hear it. I want to know it now, and I want to talk to somebody about it. So for me, I like to call directly and talk to these people over the phone. And then obviously you can go, you probably remember this from your undergrad, you can actually go online and do like request information, and they'll send it to you electronically. So there's some options there too. So when it comes to like comparing your programs, right, this can also be really tricky because there's some really excellent programs out there. So it's really great to talk about like faculty and teaching methods. So I think that's what's really cool about our program, and I'm sure Aubrey would agree with me, is we have some really excellent faculty.
We do, yeah.
And so maybe you could tell them about like our practicum experience.
Yeah, so even then, for practicum, when you get to the second year, which Catherine is currently in right now, I will be there in a year from now. So we actually get to the point of we get to counsel actual clients, and we get that field experience, which is what we all want to get to that jobs, and especially applying for jobs who are looking for a certain set of years of experience. And it's great that during the initial process of me applying, and Catherine as well, for the interviewing, they talked about practicum, and they already get it into your mind and letting you know exactly what's going on with the program before you even apply, well, after you apply, and during the interview process. So that way you kind of get a feel of what's going on with that program. So it's kind of like interviewing for a job, but it's a master's program.
I think it's really interesting how some programs do that on the spot field experience, and that was something that was a high priority, I know, for me. I know there's some really good online degrees you can get. That's also something you can explore. But for me, I wanted to learn it. I wanted somebody showing me, and I needed that hands-on kind of experience before I got out there and was really doing the work. So for me to be able to examine our program and see that that was something they offered, that helped me in my decision making. You also do want to look at the time commitment. So some programs are going to be a little shorter. They're going to be more full-time. So you're going to take multiple classes. It's going to be a pretty heavy workload, and it goes a little faster. For us, we are lucky that our program is 3 years year-round, but we only take 2 classes at a time. So they open the doors for us to be able to work full-time while still going to school. And that's not an option for every single program you apply to. So really taking that into consideration and making sure, yep, I could handle this program and still work, or no, maybe I need to, take out some additional loans or get some help financially to be able to attend school full time. So really examining your own time commitment and your own financial standing before you even commit to a program or explore whether or not to even apply. We're also going to want, I'm sorry, you want to add something?
Yeah, so the good thing about interviewing for the programs, especially ours, they kind of tell you that it's built for full-time workers. So like Catherine said, you actually can work full-time and then go to school and have those 2 classes, where sometimes we actually do only have 1 class during the summer, which is really nice. But it's nice to know that they will let you know exactly what the program entails and what to look for, and especially guidance as well. So asking them about the time. I know sometimes they tell us to have at least 10 hours of working on our schoolwork outside of class because for a master's program or even for a doctoral or anything like that, you want to put a lot of time into your schooling so you're going to be prepared for the future.
Absolutely. Other things you need to consider are like the entrance requirements. So if you don't feel completely prepared, that maybe you're ready with your GPA or things like that, that's something to examine as well. Or maybe you don't have as much experience under your belt, like internships or things like that. Maybe it is in your best interest to work a little bit before applying to grad school so you have some concrete stuff to talk about. So that's another personal choice. Admission requirements can be a little tough. Grad school isn't for everybody, and sometimes you do have to have a little higher academic GPA before they will actually enroll you into the program. I don't say that to scare anybody away. I will say that my GPA was actually not as high as I would have liked it to be going into grad school. But I felt like my education, my experience, everything was preparing me for grad school, so I went ahead and took that risk. So that's really something personal that you just have to explore within yourself if you feel you're ready to apply to the program. I love this one. So this bullet point, that enrollment and student body. So this might sound silly to you guys. You're like, well, okay, I go to class. I don't really need to know about the student body, right? Like, why does that matter? Okay, it does matter. For us, we're really lucky. We have a cohort style. I've made some of my very best friends in my cohort style.
Yeah, same here. It's a little family, especially for having a cohort. There's 24 in my class. That's both of the programs combined. So there's the school track and then there's the mental health track. So all of us together, there's 24. So you do become a little bit of a family.
Absolutely.
So it does matter.
And for those of you who don't really know what the cohort style is, it basically means that we were all admitted together and then we travel through all of our classes together. Obviously, with the school track and mental health, we do split off sometimes, but you get to stay with your same cohort throughout all the years. You build those relationships, you build your network. It's really great. So if that's something you're interested in, then you should explore that as well. You should say, okay, what's this look like? Am I going to be with the same students? How big are the classes? How many people are actually being accepted into this program? Those should all be things that are on your radar. Program approaches and specializations. This is going to be more related to what we talked about with the field experience and things like that. What am I getting myself into? Am I getting to do just an all online program? Am I getting more hands-on lecture? Am I getting that field experience? What's their approach to getting you prepared for the work life? Specializations would be if maybe you are more specific to say if I wanted to be like an addictions counselor, I may look for a program that specializes where I could say I want to work with addictions and have that option. So if there's something that you're truly passionate about, that you know this is what I want to do, then you should look for a program that offers you that experience as well. And one other thing to consider is private versus public institutions. This goes a lot along the lines with tuition and cost. So really examining what kind of cost you're looking at. Do you want to pay a little bit more to go to a private university, or are you okay going to a public university? This is where you just have to do your research and see which program is going to be right for you. So now we're actually going to go into like more of that comparing. So this is going to be more about that research aspect. So you're going to want to look at the reputation of the program, right? And the placement of the graduates. This is typically public knowledge, and you can absolutely ask. This is within your right to ask admissions programs, ask offices. Honestly, you could probably go to your career services office and ask where they're getting placed, right?
Yeah, so we actually have a FDS survey that, if you know us, we'll kind of call you once it becomes close to graduation or after graduation to ask you about your placement and everything like that, how you like the university. So us as career services at Purdue University Fort Wayne, we compile all that information. So when you want to know, well, what is the success rate of students in the business program? We can give you that information, which is completely great. And it works for graduate students as well. So you can see all of this information, see where the graduates are now working. You can see the employment rate, where, like if they're in the military or if they're full-time, part-time. You have all that information at your fingertips, and it's really good to compare that with other programs as well in other universities.
Yeah, you want to make sure the degree you're getting is being used by other graduates and that they are successful programs. I did mention earlier tuition costs and financial aid stuff. That also can go into that housing bullet a little bit too. So if the program is a really fast-paced, they may flat out tell you, I know a lot of MD programs will say, you're not going to be able to work while you go to school here. That typically just tends to be something that they will say. Not all programs, but some of them. So some people have to be really prepared to not work for the full year, 2 years, or medical school, gosh, could be 7 years. So you need to be prepared. Do I want to pick myself up and move? If you are able and can, relocate yourself, that's fantastic. But some people need to look at more options that are closer to home and are able to be flexible, similar to our program where we are able to work during the day. Going along with that, location, this can be really important, especially if you're concerned with the salary you're going to be making. Depending on what program you go into, you will have to take a licensure exam, which we kind of talked about earlier. So for us, we have to receive a license to practice in Indiana. So if you were looking to potentially relocate, you would want to look at a program that's located in the area you would want to live. Because you don't want to get a license in Indiana if I'm planning on moving to Texas, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I would want to make sure that I am confident that this is where I'm going to be living because I want to receive my license here. So those are all things you should be thinking about. And then going along, full-time or part-time, whatever is best for you, examine the programs because there are so many different options out there for you to look into. So now we're going to rank our choices, right? So I am a list maker. I'm a planner. Personally, I like to make an Excel spreadsheet and put all my stuff ranked in there. Do I like the location? How much is the tuition? Can I work? And I'll rank those things. I actually had a professor here in the Human Services Department that taught me that. She sat down with me and said, let's rank it. Let's see. Are you ready to move away from your family? Is that going to be a lower score because you want to stay close to home? And so that, seeing it on paper and being able to examine my choices and really narrow it down was so helpful to me. So you really want to apply to a school where you have a good chance of acceptance, right? So they're not free. Applying to grad school does cost. So you want to make sure if you have the means to apply to 3 or 4 or 5 schools, that's awesome, and I'm really happy for you. For me, I applied to only one school.
Yeah, I did too. So whereas Catherine actually made a list of everything and chose her school here at Purdue, I kind of had a little hint and a little leg up because Catherine was already talking to me about the program. I knew I was wanting to go to master school, and when she was talking to me, I already had an idea, and I didn't have other choices. So that was my main choice, which make sure you do have a backup as well. But Catherine was telling me about the program, so I was so into it, so I didn't want to have another choice. But it is important to make a list so you know what other universities you'd like to apply to. That way, if one does fall through, you have backups. If you do want to know the admissions fee and all the other fees that kind of come along with applying to the program, they should have it on their website so you do have an idea of how much you'd be paying. For us, it was around about $100, but that's mostly just making sure you have your transcripts. I think it's like $50 for us to actually apply for the application process, which even for some undergrad programs to get into the university, there is still a $50 or $25 fee to apply to the program.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be different depending on the program. Bouncing off of Aubrey, she really segued me great for this. Consult the professors, the alumni, and professionals in the field. I can't stress this enough. They will help you make your decision. They really will. People that have experienced the program, people who teach within the program, they're going to know the most information. It's one thing to see it in writing. It's another thing to hear it from a trusted source. So you want to contact these people. You want to reach out to them. Ask them about their experiences. Ask them what they liked and what they disliked. Get a feel for it before you commit to applying to it, because it's really going to make a big difference to hear somebody talk about something. So say Aubrey was opposite of me and was scared of the field experience and didn't want to do it. She may say, oh boy, that's not the program for me. But luckily that didn't happen. Yeah. But that is possible. So if maybe you weren't aware that that was going to be a component of the program, you may decide to opt out from applying just because of what somebody told you. Yeah. So it can be really great to hear other people's experiences and go off of that.
It is. And I mean, Catherine prepared me and told me about PRACT and kind of gave me a little hint about what the interviewing was like. So I wasn't stressing out as well. during that day. And actually, our director of career services, she did the same program, but she did school counseling. So she does know about like the back in the day kind of for the program. But it's still nice that you have other people to talk to and they know what they're talking about. Especially in our undergrad in the human services, they're nothing but great people and they want the best for you. And I'm sure all the other departments at any university, especially ours, are going to be welcoming and helpful to get you where you want to be.
Yeah. And stepping outside of Purdue Fort Wayne, a lot of your professors in your undergrad, people that work here at the university, typically they have a master's degree or they have a higher ed degree of some sort. So look at that too. If you have a professor that's close to you that you've kind of had as a mentor, you've built a relationship with, and you want to talk to them about what their program was like, do that. I always say everybody likes to talk about themselves. They really do. They want to share their experiences with you and they want to help you. So reaching out to them is huge, and I definitely encourage you to do that. This one's going to sound a little silly, right? This is planning campus visits. This is your university. This is where you are planning to spend so many years. You're going to be paying a lot of money to go there to get some education from them. You need to make sure it's the right fit. So just like you would your undergrad, schedule an appointment, go to the university, take a tour, look at the classes, look at the culture, and see if it's the right fit. You can typically set up meetings with faculty and current students within that department because, like I said, they want you to come to their university. So they're going to do what they can to kind of influence you to make that decision. So take advantage of that time. Typically, junior, senior year is when you're going to want to really start examining some of those campuses and some of these programs to really nail down what you want to apply for and what's the right fit for you.
A lot of the stuff that we're talking about is kind of similar to when you're applying to an undergrad program at a high school, or if you're a returning student, it'd be after you're working in the field for a little bit longer. So it's the same thing. It's just going to be more focused on a specific program, and it's going to be more narrow than undergrad. But essentially, all these steps are kind of the same, if not a little bit different, to applying to an undergrad program fresh out of high school.
All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some application requirements. So these are the things that you're going to do now that you've made your decision on where I'm applying to school, right? So you want to keep in mind that there are going to be some programs that require you to have certain exams. So there's things like the GRE, which is a pretty well-known exam. We also have the LSAT, the MCAT, the GMAT, and the PCAT. I'm probably saying that wrong. It's probably PCAT. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not a pharmacist. I have no idea. But these are some of the exams you want to be on the lookout for. This is something you'll want to start researching early. You don't want to get to the end of your senior year and realize, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be taking this exam and I have to have these scores. You want to know it's coming. You want to be able to prepare. You can see that last bullet there, that study using test prep. You want to be prepared for these exams. These scores matter. These are going to help make or break that selection process. And some of these programs are very competitive. So making sure that you are ready to go. Know these things ahead of time. Know your exam is coming. Make sure you know where to go. So depending on whatever university, you'll typically just have to go to a testing center. We have them here. We have them at Ivy Tech. Depending, you just have to research when they're offering those exams.
Yeah, sometimes they even let you take them at a public library as well for exams, especially for campuses or universities that are far away from you. I do know that they do offer that, especially to students who are willing to relocate.
Yeah. And look into some different waivers for fees too, because some of the exams do cost. I think actually all of them do cost for you to take. So there are some options to you. So just do your research, talk to your professors, talk to people who are experts on these exams. This is another good place to maybe hook up with a student that has already gone through the process of applying to get a feel for like, okay, so I have to take the GRE. I'm fairly confident in my skills, but I really don't know what to expect. They're going to be able to recommend the best test prep stuff for you. They're going to be able to kind of give you an idea of what it was like for them. So this is really where knowledge is power. Having that background information so that you're really feeling prepared when you walk into the room to take those exams.
Yeah, and even then, if you want to know a little bit more and maybe you don't have a resource to talk to about those exams that you have to take, a lot of time Google is power. I mean, search for it, see test exam samples or pre-exams. Those will definitely help prep for all those exams that you have to take. And again, it's the same thing as high school. When you're wanting to get into a college, you have to make sure that your scores are really good and they reflect what you know when you want to get into that program. It's important.
All right. So what about our application requirements? What else do we need to have?
Letters of recommendation. Catherine and I were very blessed with all of our academic advisors in the Human Services Department. Catherine got hers from the chair of the department, and I got mine from my academic advisor and my professor. Who knows you better than those people who actually teach you? They see you in your classrooms. Your employers, they will also help you with a letter of recommendation. My employer here, Ashley, she gave me a letter of recommendation, and so did somebody else in this department, because who knows me better than my workplace, the faculty in my classes. Those are really good people that know who you are, and they can vouch for your character, and especially all your skills, your skill set as well.
Typically, we just say make sure you stay away from like family members,
Yes.
and close friends. I'm not saying, if maybe you have a work friend within the department that you've worked with, or you've been at a job with for an extended period of time, or even potentially a classmate. Those are all good people to ask. You just want to be careful. You want to make sure you have some concrete experience that they're able to reflect on your character as well. Also, when you're asking for letters of recommendations, you have to provide some stuff there you can see. So this is kind of dependent on the program as well.
Yeah, it's best to be prepared, especially since we have some things listed on here, like the recommendation forms. Our program actually they give you a whole packet, and it will tell the person who you're wanting to write a recommendation for you. It'll tell them exactly what to write. I think they had 3 things on ours that they wanted to know about us. And then all they have to do is just type it up, and they can either send it to them, so like the stamped and addressed envelopes. You can also give that to them if it's to a university that's far away. Luckily for us, we were applying to the same university, so we didn't really have to worry about the stamped. We just asked for it back, and then we turned it in with our packet at the end. Have your resume. Give it to the person who you're wanting to have the recommendation written for you. They'll definitely look over your resume and see what you've done, especially in the human services field. We are very, very religious when it comes to volunteering and community service. So when they see that, then they know that you are very community oriented, and then they can vouch for that on the recommendation. And then also have deadlines. Give them the deadline that they need to submit it by. For us, like I said, we just submitted it and handed it in the packet, but sometimes there are different deadlines. It just depends on the program you're applying for. So make sure you look at those deadlines for the application to be due on, and any special instructions that they need.
Deadlines can be tricky too. You want to give your person enough time to write you a good letter, but you want to make sure you're following up with them.
Yeah.
Especially with us, like we said, it was a little easier because we were able to go to them and say, hey, I'm hoping you're still able to write me that recommendation. Just want to remind you it's due at this point. And that was fine. We were able to go get it. Now, if you're applying to a university where they are required to mail it in, you don't want that weight on your shoulders of, did they mail it in? Did that actually happen?
Oh, yeah.
Or am I not going to have a letter? So this can be tricky. So you want to give it to them in enough time that they're able to write you a good, solid recommendation where you're not putting them out and making them rush. That's never a good way to start a situation like this. But you also don't want to give it like so many months in advance to where they're going to forget about it, and then you have to awkwardly kind of keep reminding them. So kind of that happy medium, and just making sure you're being really professional and considerate in every area. And I think that goes into our last point there. Please send a thank you note.
Oh yeah. Send a thank you note to anybody who you came in contact with, especially for the letters of recommendation. These people are vouching for you. You need to thank them for that, because they are taking time out of their day to help you get into a program and vouch for you. Catherine even wrote me a recommendation because I needed a third person, and who better to know me than Catherine? And I asked her, and I mean, we're in the same workplace, but I would have written her a thank you card if I wasn't working with her. And it's what you need to do. Thank you cards get you a long way in life. I mean,
they really do make a difference.
They do. And I see a lot of difference, especially even if job interviewings, if you don't send one, that could be a make or break. And it's the same thing for applying. And after an interview with the program, always send a thank you card, because that may be the make or break that they in their decision on accepting you to the program.
Continuing on with some of these application requirements, so we do also have, a lot of times you're asked to write an essay. Typically it's called like a personal statement. They really want to know from you why you want to be a part of their program. They want to know what your drive is, what your passion is. Obviously they're going to ask you about your ability, so they're going to ask you some of your experience, your educational background, things like that. Some of them will maybe specifically ask you your areas of interest. So this could be, you know, an interesting point about you, or why you were pulled into that, why you wanted to do this, what this profession speaks to you about. This is a good place to also showcase if you're in more of a research aspect, if you have done a project that you've worked on continuously, or you've worked closely with a professor on a research assignment. This is a good place to kind of showcase that. I know it can be kind of tricky on a resume to just kind of bullet that out and really give a lot to it, because sometimes those are really powerful experiences and can change your life and will really impact how you want to see your future. So those things, this is a good place to really speak your voice, make them want to bring you in for an interview. I always kind of say this is like a longer, more in-depth version of like a cover letter. We don't want it to be just a professional letter style. We want it to be your voice. We want to see your passion. Make me remember who you are. They told us that a lot when we were getting ready to do our personal statements. They wanted something that stood out to them, that they could say, oh, I remember her, she's the one who. So you want to have something that's really going to bring you in and make you, I can't find my words. You want to be brought in with this expectation of, she really wants this. She wants to be admitted into this program. He wants to be admitted into this program because of these reasons. This is a great place to talk about your goals. So you can see on there, I said like short-term, long-term, whatever you're hoping to accomplish in your future, what this program is going to give you in addition to just some background knowledge. It's going to get you somewhere in life, and you want to talk about your long-term goals too. You don't want to just say, oh, I'm just doing it because I want a master's degree. There has to be more reason to it than just that. Maybe you want to have a bigger salary. That's excellent. That's great. And a lot of times that's why people go for their master's or doctorate. But at the end of the day, this is a time commitment. This is a lot. There should be some other underlying reasons to why you want to do this. There should be some passion involved here too.
Yeah, especially so kind of what Catherine was saying earlier is, if you wanted to specialize in addictions, you have to figure out exactly where you need to go to be specialized in addictions. So talking about that, for the reasons why you wanted to attend this program, even talking about the atmosphere of the university, how you were drawn to it, why you're drawn to the program, it's something that will help you stand out because you are being passionate about a program. Again, it's the same thing as applying to a job. You're passionate about the job and you want to apply for it. It's the same thing as a master's program. It is a time commitment, and although sometimes it may be overwhelming, but it pays off in the end. It really does pay off the end. And have that personal uniqueness in there. Talk about yourself. They will tell you exactly what they want. Some may not, but talk about who you are, why you're driven towards this line of work. Again, talk about the interest in the program, especially if there are professors in that program. Research what they've done, and if there's some things that you are very drawn to. So let's say there's a professor who is very interested in diversity, and I feel the same way about diversity, which I do. Then I'm going to talk about diversity in my essays because that's something that I really am passionate about. So kind of applying yourself and making sure that if a professor is specializing in something or they're doing a research on something and you feel the same way about it, talk about it, because then it's going to speak volumes to them.
Personal statements can be a bit overwhelming because it is one of those situations where it's like, this is kind of my first impression. Like, you know, they're going to be reading your application, they're going to read through your transcript, but your personal statement is really you getting to share your voice and why you want to do this and why you're worth their time. So I really say take these very seriously. Don't wait till the last minute to write your personal statement, even if you're like, I got this. No, you want to make sure you take your time. And we did provide you with an online resource right there to help you with these essays. But please go to the Writing Center, have them take a look, and come and see us at Career Services. We look at personal statements all the time. We're here to help you. We have a specific appointment that's graduate school preparation. We want to look at your personal statements, or we want to help you be able to craft the best one that we can for you.
Most definitely. And I forgot to talk about it, but sign it off. At the end of any essay, always thank the reader for their time, especially thank them. Because again, like the thank you note, they are taking their time to look at all this stuff, so you want to thank them, and then just re-express your interest in the program. Just say, I'm very excited to know more about the program, and I look forward to hearing from you. What a great way to sign it off, because again, you're reiterating yourself that you are very interested in this program and you want to be in there.
All right, last little set of application requirements before we jump into some interviewing stuff. So obviously they are going to ask you for a few different things. We talked about this a little bit. They're going to ask you for your transcript. Typically they want the official transcript. They're going to ask you for personal references. That may be separate to the recommendation letter. They may just want a copy of your reference page, which we are happy to help you create as well. And they may ask you for some additional writing samples. This is all going to be dependent on the program you're applying for. So this is another area where you will want to research what they're looking for. Make sure you're saving things. I'm hoping I'm talking to some people early on, some freshmen, sophomores, juniors. Start saving some of this work that you're really proud of, because you may want that to be something that you showcase within an interview. I know for myself, during my internship, I was responsible for my capstone project. My capstone project, I created a binder, almost a portfolio, and it went very well in line with my counseling program. So I had that on hand. Luckily, I didn't really need or have the opportunity to bring it out in the interview, but I was prepared. I was ready to show that if I needed it to kind of back up what I'm saying on my resume. Because there's always a way of bragging about yourself in a good, positive way on your resume, in your cover letter, in your personal statement. It's another thing to be able to talk about it and back it up and show things like your writing samples or brochures you've created or other marketing things you've created. These samples are going to be really helpful to you, and sometimes they may ask you to bring a portfolio with you to an interview. So just being sure to keep in mind what they're asking of you and when they're asking for it. So they may say with the application they want these things. There may be a separate deadline, a separate person to send it to. So just being aware. Make sure you have that checklist. Be highlighting things, cross it off, make sure you're hitting every part of the application. There are programs that if you don't put all of the required documents in there, they're not even going to look at it. So you want to make sure everything is in there and that everything is done professionally and that you've had it all looked at by not only yourself, but have somebody else look at it. Whether that's us in Career Services or that's a family member or a friend, make sure you're not missing something. Have them go through the list with you. Do I have my transcript? Do I have my letter of recommendation? Do I have my resume? Make sure it's all in there. You don't want to get all the way through and pay for it and be thrown out.
I remember even for me, I had 3 checklists. I had one here at work, I had one at home, and I had one in my book bag at all times. And even when I was going up to hand in my application, I even had the checklist, and I'm just like, yes, yep, I have it. Because I am rechecking everything, and if I didn't have something in there, at least I didn't hand it in. I could go back, I can reprint it off real quickly, hopefully, and then I can hand it in. It is very important to have all those required documents, because it could be that make or break for you.
All right. So with our remaining time, we're going to talk a little bit about the interview process. So this is a really fun topic for us, obviously being in Career Services. We do a lot of mock interviews, and we do a lot of work on presenting interviews to students. We've learned from a lot of employers what they look for in an interview. So it's one of my favorite topics to talk about personally. So when it comes to grad school interviews, they will feel a little different than a job interview. Yes. So just being prepared. So this is another area where research is going to be your friend. So learn about the program and learn about the faculty. If you are able to get in touch with somebody who has gone through the interview process, this is going to be very helpful. You're going to almost have that inside scoop on who the professors are and what are they passionate about. If you don't have that, look at their publications, look at the website. do the research. Find out what they like, find out what you're going to have in common with them, and use that to your advantage during the interview.
Yeah, Catherine definitely helped me because she told me about what we were gonna do in there, what things would be best, and she would tell me that if somebody wasn't getting their chance to speak up, she told me that it'd probably be good for me to say, hey, I think somebody wants to say something. And I actually did that. And I remember the director of the program actually came up to me and thanked me for making sure that somebody else had their voice input going in there. So it is helpful to have somebody. And Catherine was definitely my shoe in and my little light bulb on what was going to happen, which I am eternally grateful to her because I went in there a little bit more calm, and normally I'm all like going, and I'm freaking out, and she helped me calm down. So when that day came, I'm like, all right, I knew what's going on, I knew how to handle myself, and she helped me out. So it's definitely a good thing to have somebody to give you that little inside scoop.
And this is where I'd like to give the plug again because I work for career services, right? You got to come into career services.
Yes.
At the end of the day, Aubrey is my friend. She's my coworker. I want to see her succeed. We want to see all of our students succeed. If you are nervous about the interview, come in and do a mock interview.
Yes.
If you are interested in knowing what the style is going to look like, you can see that picture there. That's a panel interview. Are you sitting in front of 4 or 5 people, or is it a one-on-one? Are you going to be doing a meet and greet type situation where you're going office to office?
Group interview.
Yeah. You want to know what's coming, and you want to know how to prepare for that. So inquiring about what the interview is going to look like, and then coming into career services to get prepared for it. We are here for that. We are here to help you. I put on there prepare intelligent questions to ask. This is a little tricky. This is a little different than job searching. Job searching, you can typically ask, well, what are you looking for the person who fills this job? Or, you're able to kind of pull from the job description in here. Grad school's a little bit different. You're going to want to ask program structured questions. You're going to want to ask questions about the faculty. There's a lot of different things you can ask, but it can be a little overwhelming when you haven't gone through the process before. So if you want to, come and see us. Come and drop in or come make an appointment and let us help you prepare some of those questions. Typically, you probably know what questions to ask. You're just not feeling so confident asking them without somebody giving you that backbone. Like, yeah, that's a good question. You should ask that. So come and see us. Going along with the trying to know somebody or get information from current students or previous students, prepare what to wear. This is kind of a silly story, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. When I was interviewing for my grad program, I had recently had foot surgery, and I had just come out of a boot and was under the impression the only way I could look professional was by wearing a pair of heels. Okay? So I thought, well, we're doing this. We're going to wear a pair of heels to this interview. And little did I know, it was a kind of speed interview process.
Yes.
It was going office to office with 20-minute individual interviews, and I had to walk the halls of Neff Hall, which, for those of you who aren't Purdue students here at the university, that's down a few long hallways in different offices.
It is.
And it was a lot. And I, looking back, was like, man, why didn't you just wear a cute pair of flats to go with your outfit? You want to be prepared. Know if you're going to be walking around. Know if you're going to be getting a tour. What the types, what the styles, what some of the questions are. That's a great thing to talk to current students or past students, alumni about, because they're going to have the inside scoop for you. And honestly, I'm going to tell you probably not to wear heels.
Yeah, and if you really want to know how to dress during the interview, if you look at our career guide, it is also online if you want to look at it. We do have little tips and tricks on what to wear. If you do want to know what to wear, you can always dress up, especially if you're meeting with us for a mock interview, dress up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't and you're just going to an interview and you just pass by and say, is this appropriate? We can tell you yes or no. If there's some no's, then we can kind of give you a little hints on maybe what to change.
Yeah.
So we are more than happy to do that for you guys.
It's really nice in our mock interviews if you come professionally dressed, because you're going to feel better when you go the actual day of the interview. For ladies, like if you're wearing a pencil skirt, you're going to feel better knowing like, okay, yep, I've sat down and stood up multiple times and it's okay. For men, same goes for like suits, so like jackets and things like that. Sitting and standing and how to professionally do that. It's better to make the mistake in front of us than to do it the day of the interview. So going along with the admission interviews, so this is going to be like during. So obviously, like we said, dress professionally and comfortably. You're going to want to ask the students, like I said earlier, what their what am I even saying? Current students' opinions of their advisors. Okay, that's an interesting point. I don't know if I really agree with that point, but it could be beneficial. You could find out early on what they like about their advisors or dislike, what they like about the program and what they dislike. I think this is more going along with that prepping for the program, though. I don't know that I would wait all the way till the interview to decide whether or not I was going to be in this program.
Yeah, and even then, like, when it's saying, like, the students' opinions of the advisors, where sometimes it does matter, at the same time, you have to take into account that where maybe Catherine, like, maybe does not like this advisor, and maybe I hit it off with them. So you can't always take it for granted. It is nice to know about maybe their teaching tricks and how to better prepare for their classes. That I definitely understand.
Absolutely.
Because then it's a little different in the actual classroom setting, whereas the academic advising setting, that's going to be a little bit different. But definitely know about their teaching styles. That's probably something that I'd be more on the line with
I agree
than
with that.
their opinions of their advisors.
Follow standard rules of interviewing. This is going to be things like shaking hands, keeping eye contact, appropriate body language. This is going to be, please don't like skip questions. Even if you need to take a moment to think about it, that's fine, but don't ask them to skip a question.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you're doing what you would be doing in a job interview. You want to be professional and appropriate.
And what we can teach, even in the mock interviews, what we teach you is if it comes to the point that you want them to repeat the question, you can always say, that's a great question. Do you mind repeating it just so I know that I heard it right? Or if you need a minute, you can say, wow, that's a really great question. Do you mind if I think about it for a little bit? Those are 2 tricks to have them repeat the question. If you kind of were in like a daze and you were thinking about something and you completely missed the question, ask them to repeat the question in that manner. If you need time to think about it, they're fine if you need time to think about it, because at the end of the day, they want to make sure that, you want to make sure that you're giving them the right answer and they want to hear the right answer from you. So always taking those 2 questions and having them just repeat it or give you some time, that's definitely going to help you out. And then you can have a little breather time as well to stop and think.
Absolutely. Last bullet point there is really important. Some of the interviews you go to, they are going to be a little bit more social. Depending on the program and their interview style, they may break it up. They may bring you in individually. You just never know. But if you have the opportunity to kind of do like a social hour or a mingle with the other people you're interviewing with, or the staff, the faculty, you just want to make sure you're being evaluated at all times. I know for us, we had like granola bars and water bottles that we could grab prior to going into the rooms. Don't be the person who takes like 6 granola bars. Like you're probably being watched.
Take a water bottle, definitely.
You want to take 1 granola bar, that's great, but don't like stuff a bunch in your purse or in your pockets, or don't
definitely eat before the interview.
Yeah, and then you also want to make sure if it is an individual and maybe you have to approach like a receptionist, you want to make sure that you're being very professional, very polite. Everybody is evaluating you. I know here specifically, we always ask our receptionist after we're interviewing somebody,
how did they treat you?
How did they treat you? How did they greet you when they came up to the desk?
What were they doing when they were waiting? Especially like the waiting process. I always, for me, I know it's hard for a lot of people. You either turn off your cell phone and keep it tucked away and don't ever look at it, or just leave it in your car.
Yeah.
Which I do turn it off and tuck it away because I don't trust people with
Yeah, don't get yourself caught sitting out in the lobby waiting for them and you're on your phone.
It's disrespectful.
Nothing is more unprofessional than standing up and having your phone in your hand and missing the handshake. And I had a friend who dropped his phone and had to run over and get his phone, and it's just, that's awkward. Don't put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, you can take the time to actually look at the atmosphere in the office setting as well. I know for a couple job interviews, especially one here when I was applying to be a career fair, I had my phone tucked away and all I did was just keep looking around and seeing what signs they have, what marketing things were going around. I learned about Catherine's webinar. Well, at the time it was Natasha's, but I learned about the webinars. I learned about who actually sponsors us as well. So those are definitely things to think about.
Yeah.
Especially being evaluated at all times. I know for Catherine and I will be participating in this next week, is there's actually students that you can get to talk to. And whether you like it or not, they are also evaluating you. And Catherine even let me know that they do go back, because Catherine participated in it as well. She was on the receiving and the giving side of that.
They do
and
ask.
They do.
Yeah.
The professors ask because they want to know, how are you treating other people in the room when those higher eyes aren't looking at you?
Absolutely. So the very last thing is the after the interview process, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but you want to make sure you do a thank you note. I always get asked by students, does it have to be a handwritten note? And the answer is no, it really doesn't. At the end of the day, you want to say thank you. So sending either a handwritten note, which I will say I'm partial for. They're hanging all over my office. I love them. I love sending them to everybody I encounter. I think it sends such a personal feel, along with putting your name in front of them one more time. If I get one thank you note out of 20 people, that person is staying on my radar, because gosh, they took the time to handwrite me a thank you note. But at the end of the day, you want to just say thank you, and be genuine. So whether or not that's sending an email to the person and saying, please pass on my thanks to everybody involved in the interview, that's fine too. You just don't want to leave and that be the last moment. At the end of the interview, though, you do want to be sure to shake hands with everybody in the room. So you want to make sure whoever's in the room with you, you're saying thank you individually. You don't want to just do a thanks for having me, guys, it's been great. No, you want to individually thank everybody for their time, because as much of a time commitment as it was for you, it's 10 times more for the person interviewing, because they have lots of applicants.
Yeah, and when it comes time for you to write those thank you cards, even when you're leaving, always ask for business cards. Luckily for us, again, we kind of have a little bit of an easier process. We already knew where their office was, so all we had to do is look it up. So it's easier for us. But ask for the business card, or write down their name. The information is also online, especially for a lot of universities, and finding the staff. They may not have the location, but ask for that business card, because then you can personally address it to them, especially email as well. We also, in our career guide, talk about thank you cards electronically and handwritten as well.
All right, before we jump into some questions, just want to share with you guys some hints and advice. So the first thing we can say to you is try to keep your grades up. This is going to be really important. You want to be working on your grades right now. Don't think, okay, let me just get through undergrad and then get into grad school. That's really not how it works. You want your GPA to be high. You want to be accepted into these programs. So make sure you start this early. Don't wait until senior year and put all that pressure on your shoulders that I need to get straight A's or else I won't get accepted. Start this now. Start early. Keep in mind that maybe as a sophomore right now, you don't think you want to go to grad school, but senior year, you might decide you do. Don't waste your time. Make sure your grades are up to par. Same with extracurriculars, volunteering, research opportunities, bunching these things together, that internship stuff, that research stuff, those extracurriculars. Do this now. Start these while you have time. Before you get into a 40-hour-a-week job or 18 credit hour semester, make sure you're taking advantage of extracurriculars, student organizations, internships, externships,
professional associations,
everything.
This is all stuff that you can put on your CV or your resume, especially for the GPA part, because if they do require you have a minimum GPA of, let's say, the 3.0, put that on your resume, as long as it matches it or is close to it. But even then, like, if you don't meet the GPA, they may put you on academic probation and still accept you, or you could be waitlisted. But it is good to put all this information on your resume, so then they can just look at it and know.
Absolutely. Kind of what we talked about earlier, get to know these faculty members, do your research those exams. Do you have to have a test taken before you can apply to the program? Make sure you know what to expect. Do this early. There's nothing that says, maybe you're not applying for 2 years, but you want to keep in mind what you need to be prepared with. This is a good thing to start early. It's same as applying for jobs. It's never too early to start applying for a job. You want to start getting your resume out there. You want to start getting your name out there. Do that networking early. I like to mention we always have information meetings. So if you're looking to apply within the university, you can see that all over social media. You can see where there will be doing like panel situations of like the OLS program, the counseling program, the business, the MBA. You can see that they do have like information where you can go and actually talk to somebody and they'll give you like a packet of information. Take advantage advantage of those. I went to my first one sophomore year. I wanted that information then and now. I wanted to know what was I getting myself into. So take advantage of those things. Request that information, those application requirements. You want to know everything that you're going to have to do.
And sometimes even those information sessions that you go to, they will actually hand you the application. They will hand you the bingo sheet, is what we call it. It will tell you exactly what classes you're going to take. For us, it laid it out perfectly of when you're taking each of those classes. So that's stuff that they may give you in the information session as well. Look into graduate citizenships. For here, I know that we do have some. Catherine and I are in a graduate internship, so it's definitely different. There's a lot of tuition difference between those. I'm not exactly sure on the very specifics of them, but for the graduate citizenships, you do, I believe, you get tuition reimbursement.
Yeah, tuition reimbursement typically. So that's something to keep in mind, especially for those programs that are very heavily research based. A lot of times too will offer you like a research assistantship where you're going to be working closely with a professor to help them with their publications. And you get paid to do that, a discount on your tuition, depending on the university, and it gives you the opportunity to work while in school, even if it's not an outside job. So those things are really good to prepare for.
Yeah, and sometimes even the university, for us as well, if you have a full-time job and you are going to school, you do get a percentage off of the tuition, so that is something else to always take into account.
Yeah.
Apply for your financial aid and fill out your FAFSA form in January or before graduation, just so you know that you are approved and you're ready to go. If you have questions, always contact your financial aid office and they'll help you get going and make sure that you have everything submitted before you actually need it. It's better be prepared than underprepared.
Yeah, and bachelor's degrees, I always like to mention, they shouldn't necessarily dictate your master's degree.
Nope.
It can be really helpful if your master's and your bachelor's kind of coincide, where you've learned some information that can be helpful to your master's degree, but they don't dictate your decisions. I have a friend who got her bachelor's degree in education with a specialization in mathematics. And guess what? She's going to be a mental health counselor. So she decided that that was the role she wanted to take. That was the career path she wanted. And even though there's little math in counseling, she was able to use that degree to get her into her master's program. So don't rule things out. Just say, because you say, well, I got this bachelor's, so I can't get my master's. That's not necessarily true. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, really, it's all about perseverance and just staying positive. Grad school, it's a process. Trying to decide whether or not to go, trying to examine where you should go, the research, the interview, the applications. It's a lot, and it can be really overwhelming, especially seeing it in an hour-long PowerPoint. But guess what? It's going to be worth it. Stay positive. Make sure that you are keeping the best attitude you can, because it really will make a difference. If this is something that you're really driven towards and you want, then go for it, because you got this.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box. I failed to explain it like I normally do, but if it's in the chat box, you can type it in. There's a little drop down. You can send it to all participants, or you can send it to the host, which is myself and Aubrey. So please feel free to type in some questions.
About 2 minutes left. If you don't end up typing in a question, you have questions later, always feel free to come contact me or Catherine, or the career services as well. We can always help you out as best as we can.